I feel like AI has essentially moved the goalposts for certain aspects of the development cycle. Some of the parts that used to be really hard and kind of caused what they would call the waterfall effect in production pipelines were usually things like art or programming features, things that were a little more nebulous when it came to the planning and structure of it. These things have gotten a lot easier to produce with AI, especially with a lot of the current generative AI models. You have to have a familiarity with the project, but you can build snippets and prompt pieces that you can piece together and build what you're wanting. So a lot of the style consistency almost comes down to pure iteration. And I wasn't really wanting to just play with the iterative side of working with an AI. I wanted to really focus on the production side. So in this game, I didn't use any AI art, funny enough, even though the goal was to make an AI-developed game. Everything in this game, minus the font, which I downloaded, and the icons, which I lovingly handcrafted in Photoshop, is more or less procedural. The idea is to make the game's uptime during production as high as possible. Be able to test any feature and any change without having to have an older snapshot of the game. So I was wanting to just start with something really simple. So this is my, Gradius asteroids homage, because I think that's the safe word to use when it comes to that stuff. And the idea was to just take some of those mechanics, mix it into something new, and see if I could jump into an engine, this is Godot 4.3, that I've really only used once before. I tried to make a Game Jam game, and honestly I made a 2D car controller, and that was about it on my own during a Game Jam. So I wanted to give myself the same time frame. It took a little more time in planning, so I had to take that time in little chunks. I really want to point out some of just the cool things that I was able to do with Grok that, yeah, it would have been doable, but really wasn't the direction that I was going to go with stuff, is the background for me when I was doing the development. Because I had the idea, it was a very clear idea in my head of essentially the size being kind of how far back the star was, simulate 100 stars going past. But it really was just a one-shot, hey, I need this feature, was able to send it off and get it back from Grok. The other thing that was really cool with how Grok was able to just understand multiple files is, since Godot 4.3, open source engine, it can just read all the documentation, it knows how to build all the pieces, and I can just upload all of my scripts for the game at once. I can just select the folder of them and plug them into Grok each time I'm starting a session. And I'm still going through line by line. I actually have a little trick for this, which has been I have it return things as spaces and I'm using tabs. So the code doesn't work unless I literally look at and review each line as I'm plugging it in. Part of this is, being an old-timey programmer, if I'm being the lead, I want to verify everything before it goes in, and that might just be the human side of me coming out, not fully trusting the AI. But I feel like the other big aspect of that too is I'm not necessarily wanting it to just do all the stuff all the time, especially if I can learn through osmosis. I want to let the AI build at the speed it can build. But really, if I can learn from it at the same time, it just builds a better production workflow. It means each production we're doing, yeah, I can build that digital tool belt of scripts and things with the help of the AI. The AI knows the system, but then also I will be able to know the system and know where it's putting the code. So I feel like looking at a production side, it's more of finding ways that you can break up the code, almost production level work itself, like being a producer, becomes a more important role because everyone becomes a producer. Everyone is having to work with AIs as if they're a team of people. Honestly, I'm starting to believe that production work, like being a producer, and quality assurance work are slowly becoming two of the most important aspects of development. More or less with the AI's iterative power and its generative power, it can spin the wheels, so to speak, in any direction, but it doesn't know what direction to go. A lot of the planning, the product design, the game design documents, that stuff is going to become gold for feeding into these AIs. But then you need the quality assurance to be able to just quickly jump in and test the game at any point, be able to say, hey, this needs improved, this needs tweaked, this is what people are liking, this is what people aren't. I guess quality assurance almost morphs into a production level marketing, A/B testing type role. I feel like AI is fixing the choke point of art and programming, knowledge, skill-based jobs. Anything where you get better at that 10,000 hours and become that professional, that stuff goes away. But it doesn't get rid of the need for art direction. It doesn't get rid of the need for good design, good planning. The artists themselves, the ones that are avoiding some of this technology, in some ways are going to be surpassed by the ones that are using it. Does that mean that these art forms become almost niche hobbies because they excluded themselves from the market? Do they force themselves through a union and then make essentially a Hollywood of games, and then there's a big indie scene that erupts from it? I'm not quite sure. I feel like a lot of this is an exciting new frontier. It's kind of the reason why I want to be in it. The reason I got into games in the first place. I was researching inverse kinematics when that was a cutting-edge science, something that's now used in robotics. I was studying some of the basic shaders and other movement systems for rigs and detached rigs and modularity for being able to load stuff into games. I got into games because it was the cutting edge. Finally finding an industry that feels new and fresh and exciting, not the same glowing rectangle that pictures show up on. This is new technology. I think we're entering an era of machine husbandry. And I know that term was originally a joke, but a great example from Timcast was ask an AI to generate an overflowing glass of wine. It has trouble because it's not something humans typically do or take pictures of. However, a human can notice that gap in the system and can guide the training to improve the system. So we're going to be at a point where we are maintaining, training, and observing the gaps within the models of these AIs. And I think this is an exciting new frontier that really the youth should embrace and artists should stop being afraid of. There will always be room for painters, for sculptors, but this is a new form of art and something that I think will shape the course of human evolution for at least the foreseeable future, minus, any worldwide calamities we don't foresee. We might not know where this ship is going, but honestly, no true explorer does.